Hey guys, this is the host of No Holding Back, Chris Yellow, and today we'll be talking about a controversy that everyone cannot stop talking about, and that is the rioting, the protests, and the looting that's happening all across the world due to the fact that African American George Floyd was brutally murdered by a racist cop in Minnesota. Obviously, that gave a really bad taste to the citizens of the United States of America, uh, which led to the protests and looting and basically the continuous police brutality that's been shown all across of social media. And today I got my very good friend Sebastian Kuska, who's going to give his opinions and thoughts on the subject. So, Sebastian, the floor is all yours, man.
Hi, Chris. I just would like to start off by saying thanks for letting me come on the show.
No problem,
It's a
man.
great opportunity, and I appreciate the chance to be able to express my opinions in a very civil and productive dialogue, which is something that's becoming less and less apparent or less and less valued in this day and age. So
Perfect.
I'd just like to start off by saying a little thing about me, where I come from, a little background, just so people get a context of where I'm coming from. My name is Sebastian Kuska. I was born in Haiti. I lived there for 4 years, and now I reside in Montreal, Quebec, a hotspot for protests and with the subsequent rioting and the looting. Um, I am as black as I am as black as all those that are as angry about this situation. I am as angry as anybody else would be in the situation, seeing a fellow person of my complexion being treated as less than human. However, I don't think that this matter it has to do with race purely. I believe that we could believe that multiple things can be true at the same time. Uh, so, for an example, in this case, I feel like you could believe all these things to be true without the other contradicting themselves. One of them being that you believe that the police officer that brutally killed and murdered and asphyxiated George Floyd is a terrible person, terrible human being, and should be put in jail along with his three other um, policemen that were there and did nothing to save George, even though it wasn't a matter of self defense or the police being threatened. They could have easily stepped in and saved that man. You could also believe that we need justice. We need serious police reform in all of the world, in America and Canada, and in all these different areas. You could also believe that rioting and looting is immoral and is evil no matter what the justification is. Um, I understand I am as angry as anybody else would be in the situation. That is true. However, rioting and looting distracts from the main message that people are trying to come across with. And those are my three big points, the three big things that you could all believe in. These are all things that people can believe in at once. But from what I've been seeing throughout social media and general discourse is that you can't. As soon as you bring up one thing, it people automatically think that you're justifying the death of George Floyd just by saying that rioting's bad and that this is bad and this is good. This isn't the right way you should be going about it. We're instantly deemed as in my case, if you're a black male or just black in general, you're a race traitor, or if you're white, you are claimed to have some type of white privilege, or you're a racist yourself. And I don't think that's conducive to any type of form of proper dialogue and proper change to silence others that have a slightly different opinion. Because all these people that are trying to bring about their own version of change, they're also incredibly angry with what happened with George Floyd. No, I don't think anybody believes that George Floyd was killed justly in a sense of self defense. I don't think anybody's saying that. I think a large majority, I'd say almost 99% of the population across the world say that this event was incredibly tragic and that people should be punished. However, people are starting to get into debates as into whether rioting and looting is actually a good thing or whether peaceful protests are a good thing. And overall, my general worldview is that rioting and looting doesn't help. And the justification people often give is, where do you think we learned it from? And then people bring up the Boston Tea Party and multiple different revolutions throughout the world. And in my eyes, it seemed like they try to nitpick certain aspects of history and completely ignore other aspects of that history. But nevertheless, they use it anyways as a justification for great evils. I think it's a great evil to uh, go into somebody's building or somebody's place of business that has nothing to do with the horrific atrocity that happened to George Floyd and steal and burn and deface the property because that innocent person was just as innocent as George Floyd. They didn't deserve to have their business defaced. For some people, this is their livelihood. And obviously, we understand that Corona has been a big hit to small businesses and even medium-sized businesses with those that they employ, the actual owners themselves. And for 2 months, they've been under increased pressure to try to provide for their families and the people that they hire and their employees. And to see just a glimmer of hope before the George Floyd incident that things were starting to reopen and people were starting to get back into their jobs and people were starting to get into the groove. People were very positive, and for that just to disappear over his death. And I'm not saying that the rage isn't justified. The rage and anger is justified 100%. There's nobody saying that the rage and anger isn't justified. However, the focus of that rage and anger, I feel personally, is misplaced. More or less, that's my 2 cents. If I'd want to further elaborate on certain topics, yeah, I could, but that's up to you, Chris. What do you think about the situation?
Well, here's my take on it. So basically, um, it's obviously tragic that George Floyd was murdered in something that could have been easily avoidable if the cop listened to him when he was saying "I can't breathe," which has become a staple in social media right now, which has been developed into a hashtag in T-shirts and merchandise, which is basically part of the Black Lives movement. Um, Black Lives Movement is actually something that was created recently in the 2010s by two women advocates, African American advocates. I forgot their names specifically, but it was basically because of the unjustified shooting and killing of an African uh, teenager in the states. Um, Not only that, but I mean, they gave a voice to basically the African American community in the United States as well. And ever since then, Black Lives Movement has been very powerful. Would it be as powerful as the Martin Luther King movement? No, but historically, it has done more damage than the Black Lives Movement. Same thing with the Malcolm X movement, which was basically the more violent way of protesting compared to Martin Luther's more peaceful way of protesting. Um, like you were saying before about the looting and rioting, in a sense, we're attacking local businesses where people are basically living basically on the sales that they make basically to get their company to continue running every year, you know, by damaging their property. It's going to cost them a lot more money to invest in property damages than actually trying to become an established business. So is that right? No. If these people want to riot, they have the right to riot. This has been happening over like decades that innocent black people have been murdered by government powers like the police, and uh, it's not excusable whatsoever. But the problem is that if you have a problem with government based, I don't know how to really explain it, but like basically like they're under the control of the government basically. So you got the police force, the firemen, uh, politicians. If you have a problem with them specifically, you gotta make sure that your voice and your actions are is targeted specifically towards them, because if you start making it uh, a problem for other people that have nothing to do with the situation, then you're making it a national problem. And it is a national problem,
But
people.
you're making it an issue of, instead of the focus being protest for and for the justice of George Floyd, the message is being kind of
It's being spread out
diverted
as something else.
into so exactly. I understand what you're trying to say, is that the message of trying to bring justice for George Floyd is being diluted by um, other events that are going on, like the rioting and looting in communities. And I just like to mention really quickly that a lot of these tragic events where Black men were unfortunately killed by the hands of the police, they all happened in Democrat states. These are states where Democrats were um, more or less, for the majority, were the senators for these states, the representation for these states. And I've been following this since more or less 2013, 2014 when it started. And I really started paying attention to it. And every single state where this event happens seems to be a Democrat state. And for me, I think it's like the cycle continues, because I understand people, I definitely want change. I feel like the general populace wants change as well. However, would expect that a change in leadership would help with that. However, that it doesn't seem to be the case, where these Democrat leaders don't do anything. And I feel I'm personally angry at the governor, or the mayor of Minneapolis, because he did nothing. He did nothing to try to protect the innocent civilians um, in that riot. Now we can understand that this was under short notice or whatnot, but there wasn't much done to protect the innocent that were caught in the crossfires of the riot. Now, I'll just like to preface this, because I didn't get to before. Not all rioters are Black. When me and Chris are talking about rioters and looters, we're not specifically saying that all rioters and looters are Black. We're not saying that. If you think that we're saying that, that is completely wrong, and that's disingenuous. We are saying that all rioters, Black, white, Mexican, Hispanic, doesn't matter. It does not matter. All rioters and looters are bad people. All of them are, and their actions are reprehensible. That's what we're saying. Just so we don't get, we're just trying to cover our bases, just in case people get mad at us, because that drives me up a wall faster than anything else. Being called racist when that wasn't even the intention of our words, or people assuming the what our words are, what we mean with our words.
And
Uh,
then again, like, this is a very like touchy subject, so like anything we say could be held up against us for the wrong
of course,
reasons.
of course,
So
and that's why,
we're not.
and I feel like that's a bad thing, because we should be able to have an open discussion without
This needs to be
having
talked about. This needs to
exactly
be
without
discussed.
having exactly without having names being thrown at each other. Instead of having a yelling match, and people calling others racist, or people calling others Uncle Toms and thing in that such a sort, which doesn't help the conversation, doesn't help people express themselves. There are many quotes saying sunlight is the best disinfectant, and why not let the words or the opinions of people out in the open, so they could be thought about and properly reacted to, instead of instantly reacting to it with a blind process of, if you don't agree with me, therefore you're this, that, and the third. That's something that I can't advocate for. That's something that hurts me the most, because seeing everybody on social media posting, which I think is one of the laziest forms of showing your representation towards the black community, which is just posting a black square. Um, I generally feel like that's one of the lazy instead of my brother brought up a good point where it's for people to come out and march with Martin Luther King and previous black leaders, you have to actually go out and get out there and stake a little bit of safety for what you were fighting for. Martin Luther King knew exactly what he was dealing with when he was out there peacefully protesting. He knew that any day he could be shot and assassinated, but he would rather die than live in a not free society.
Because even though he would die, at least he would be a legend that's remembered forever because he was a staple of the black community that pushed them from
Exactly.
moving forward into the United States,
Exactly.
and
And,
that's what led them to, basically get jobs where they were
yeah,
basically racially segregated before, and that's what gave them jobs in government positions, law enforcement, and so on. And even in big
exactly.
corporations too. Without him, and even without Malcolm X as well. Even though people might be in a disagreement because of the way that he protested, and he was more towards the violent protests, and uh, which differed from Martin Luther King's peaceful protests. They both had a major, major, major uh,
Effects
part
on general
in
society, yeah.
and personally, like, even though, like, I've watched their movies, or maybe I've watched documentaries and listened to historical passages in school, I think that without either or, we wouldn't be here right now in the progress, and to be visually seeing the progress of the African American community progressing in society without them. I think if they were just solely by themselves and the other one did not exist, I feel like not as much would have got done.
Of course. That's a very um that's a very good observation, is that without these two great leaders, regardless of what you think about them, they at least brought up a sense of progression with the black community. I personally like Martin Luther King as just somebody, as just a role model. Um, some other black leaders that I really enjoy are Thomas Sowell, or Tom Sowell, who is one of the leading, or who was one of the leading black economists in his day. Larry Elder is another good example of a champion for African Americans in a civil way. Um, but no, just in general, back to what I was saying, not to go back into what I was kind of saying before, but it seems to me that when it comes to the social media, it seems like it's a virtue signal for me as a black man looking in, because I know for a lot of people like to um, you use how would you say, they like to bring up the fact that there's a lack of empathy if, with other races when it comes to looking at black people, but I don't understand that case where the whole point of being empathetic with somebody is that you're not in their shoes and you can empathize with their pain and their struggles and what they're trying to fight for. And I feel like just posting a black square isn't anything. There's no message in there. Sure, people would like to say that it's bringing awareness, but what awareness is? It's just a black square. There's nothing. There's nothing there. Nothing that I could see that
and
actually
and this
brings
is like my
anything.
and like so, and this is like something that, like, kind of like bothers me a little bit. Maybe you might be taking in the wrong way, and I don't mean it. What I'm gonna say is, but, like, I feel like posting a black square is basically signifying that, um, you know we're talking about the black community, but it's not only the black community that faces these challenges against police, and they're not the only victims of police brutality. There's also Hispanics involved, and that's another, like, huge community in the United States and also in Canada that are victims of police brutality and racial profiling as well. And I feel like this movement shouldn't just be based on George Floyd, but it should be based on every single nationalities or cultures that are the victims of racial profiling and police brutality. And another thing, there's no such thing as race. We are all equal. We're all uh, birthed or whatever the way, oh, born.
birth,
Sorry about that.
birth,
Birthed,
birth is what I think you're trying
birthed.
to say. Yeah,
Yeah, from the we're just born from our parents, females, and no matter if you're black, white, pale, well, that's white.
pale.
What I meant to
Yeah,
say was like,
no matter if
like
we're black, white, like race shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, that was one of the main things Martin Luther was trying to advocate
brown
for.
as well. Doesn't matter if you're Indian uh, or Spanish or uh, Canadian, American, African. Doesn't matter what type of tone your skin color is. That's the point that I was trying to get across. I know it wasn't the best way to describe it.
Hey man, it's sometimes things have to be unfiltered. It is what it is.
Sometimes, and sometimes we just need to like choose and carefully pick the right words you want to use to
Exactly. Just
describe
to make
things.
sure we're not misunderstood. And of course, when I
And then
understand,
like people are like, "What the hell is he describing? Like a paint canvas? Like what the fuck's
pale
happening
blue,
here?
green,
You know?"
a good aqua. I love aqua.
Aqua.
A good coral. Coral is one of my favorite colors, to be honest. But that's besides the point. But no, I
Yeah.
think what you were trying to get at is that at the fundamental level, this is what I believe. At the fundamental level, we're all humans, and I think police brutality, as you said, doesn't span just one race. I think it spans. I don't think it's a race issue. I think it's a police brutality issue. I feel like the police have too much unchecked power, and um, uh, there is no actual action taken against terrible police actions or terrible police engagements. I feel like the police get off way too easily with certain things that they do, and I think police brutality can happen to anybody, black, white. I don't think it's. I honestly, I don't think it's a race thing. It just so happens that the big cases that are portrayed in media happen to be cases of minorities being victimized, but there's probably a whole plethora of other communities being victimized by overzealous cops. Um, One of the great examples is Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne told a story, I think, back in 2016 to the Associated Press, where he was talking about how he doesn't think that racism is a thing anymore because there was an event where he shot himself with a gun, and later on he was bleeding from the chest, and the police stormed his room later on after somebody called 911. All the police officers completely ignored him and tried finding the gun, more guns, contraband, illegal materials, drugs, and whatnot. And one cop was like, "What are y'all doing?" To everybody else saying, and everybody's like, "Oh, we're just trying to clear the areas." And he said, "No, what are y'all doing? There's a black boy on the ground right here clutching for his, trying to grasping for life." And he picked Little Wayne up and drove him to the hospital and stood by him as he was trying to get recovered. He didn't leave until the hospital said he'd be okay. And Little Wayne said that this was a white officer that saved him, and everybody else that was there that was trying to find illegal contraband was darker than him. And I feel like that's a very telling story. I feel like with all this, the media does a good job of portraying the negative side of things. They never portray the good side,
It's always
not
twisted.
exactly.
Always gonna be
I'm not
twisted.
saying, and before people get on me, I'm not saying that police brutality isn't an issue. It definitely is. There
Of
needs to be
course it is.
police reform. However, there's not enough showing of police doing good things or apprehending suspects properly or this, that, and the third.
There's definitely
There's
like
less
good
energy.
cops and bad
There's
cops.
less energy highlighting the goods of what good people can do than the negative, because the negative, unfortunately, makes money. Negative stories make a lot more attention, a lot more press than positive stories are.
And that's the unfortunate thing
Exactly.
about press and social media, is that the good people's stories are not told often,
Exactly.
and those stories must be told. People need to
Here.
get up and say, you know what, everyone talks about the negative
Exactly.
side
Like,
about this, but what about the good cops? What about the not all cops are white. There's African American, Hispanic,
exactly.
uh brown cops, which I'm referring to Indians as well,
Mm.
Asian cops as well, um, and you know, and people are like, no, it's only like a white cops are the bad guys. But sometimes people have their own preferences, and sometimes they don't hate the specific nationality of the person. Is maybe they're not too thrilled
Comfortable or
or too
whatnot.
comfortable
Exactly.
with a specific person.
And
So,
I feel like this is where the police can have not a valid case, but can have an actual more education on this, is how to deal with different nationalities, how to treat everybody equally, how to de-escalate a situation instead of escalating it, how to avoid situations
and
like this. I feel like that's a great point to make about actual police training. Um,
and like people like also like in a police academy, it's always about the mental and physical aspect of becoming an officer, but they never talk about like how to deal with specific races,
or
you know
just the
uh
emotional aspect, the emotional toll it takes going into work every day. And of course, I appreciate all the things that the good police officers do for us, keeping us safe. Um,
of course we
exactly,
do need police
exactly,
officers at the end of the
and
day. Without them there would be anarchy and
exactly, and this is
chaos.
where another example of two things can be true at the same time. The good police need to be recognized for
Compensated
what
compensated as well.
compensate, but recognized for all the good that they do. And at the same time, we could say that the bad police officers need to be ousted, need to be I don't like to use the word exposed, but that's the only thing that's coming to mind. But they need to be um, shown as terrible people for the terrible actions that they've done. Obviously, we don't want to jump the gun and claim somebody has done something terrible without evidence. In the case of George Floyd, it's pretty, you know what I mean, man. It's kind of cut and dry there. There's no leeway there to say that, oh, something happened, he was defending himself. That was purely evil. But in other cases, maybe in future cases when something happens and it's not so, the evidence isn't not so clear, we shouldn't be jumping the gun so quickly to, because we might not have all the facts. And again, I say the George Floyd situation, we do have all the facts. We have all of them. There's nothing that says otherwise from what we already know. Um, and yeah, and it's great to see. One of the great positive highlights that brings me joy is seeing people in the communities helping out. John Bone Jones, the famous UFC fighter, was out and about helping people's communities, helping people rebuild their small businesses, their storefronts, and he was actually engaging. This was in the daytime, but he was engaging um, rioters that had paint cans that were defacing other businesses. And of course, this is Don Bone Jones. He's MMA fighter because more than capable of protecting himself. Um, and even then, most fighters say if you're fighting in a crowd, no matter how good you are, you can't beat 50 people. But even then, this was in the daytime, and these were two rapscallions, as like a word I like to say, two looters that were defacing people's businesses, and it's a great sight to see celebrities going out and helping in that way. Um, what I feel like celebrities should do a better job of is denouncing wholesale the destruction of black communities and just communities in general. Just as I said before, it isn't a black white issue, but unfortunately, where these riots are happening in predominantly, at least in the states, are happening in predominantly African American communities. And what does that serve to hurt? It doesn't hurt the government or the police station or the people that you're angry at. It hurts your fellow citizens, your fellow people. I'm pretty sure you've seen the video go around of it's an old video of a black man yelling at the protesters after witnessing what happened to his storefront, where he's yelling about saying, "Why'd you take my computer? Why'd you take my truck? Why'd you steal from me?" And he has a point. And this is where I'll reiterate the focusing the message into just denouncing rioting, denouncing looting, and advocating for protests, proper protest is the way to go, because then there's no distractions. The media can't say, "Oh, look at the riots over here," or people can't say, "Oh, look at these rioters over here." It doesn't give leeway for people to say that. It just all you see is individuals, no matter their race, because at the end of the day, we're all the same flesh and bone. Um, we're all made of the same things. That
And this is like a problem as well because with the rioters, they're just shooting their shot just to shoot it anywhere. They're not targeting the right people to send the right
exactly,
message. They're, they want to protect uh and unite like every single nationality. Everyone comes together,
yeah,
right? But you have the black community stealing from businesses within the black community, and how is that progressing?
exactly,
How is that making things better? I feel that people, before looting, if you're gonna loot, if you're gonna riot and destroy things to make your point, make sure you know who you're targeting before you target, because sometimes you realize it could be a family member, local business, or it could be your friend's local business, or maybe a friend of a friend or a cousin, but you get my
exactly.
point. And how's that going to feel after? These people have built their businesses from scratch,
They put their lives,
and
their heart and soul into it, and for one day,
exactly, and it's not easy to maintain a business, and you're trying to protest in that manner, and instead of targeting the power, the head, like Trump and the government officials, the police, the people that actually are pissing you off, the message that must be shot towards them, you're affecting your own community, you're diminishing your own community. You need to unite, okay, and help each other. And as a white privileged individual, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, because I am aware of who I am, where I come from, and what I stand for. And it wasn't only the situation of racism was only brought to my attention in college, and that's a problem because it should be addressed way earlier in educational systems. And it's historical facts from the 1950s and 1960s, the political movements, like we were talking about before, that must be taught in schools and all over, because those movements is what led to the progression of African Americans, uh, or the black communities all over the world. And I feel that if it's basically going to be taught to us if we choose a specific class in university or college. So basically, it's up to us to say, like, you know what, today, this year, this semester, this term, I'm going to choose to learn about racism. No, it should be enforced. It should be taught to us, because we are not born racist. We are taught to be racist. We are grown up by people who surround us in our communities, in our society, that teach us to say racial slurs and teach us to act uh, inhumane towards other cultures. And that's a big, big, big problem. We need to make sure the next generation of children are taught and introduced into the world the proper way. And I know people have been saying this for decades, and the same bullshit cycle keeps on happening. Racism is still happening. Will racism ever go away? Not 100%. Nothing will be completely
People will have their
discarded, or
prejudices. That's the thing that could go away.
yeah,
People will
no
have
matter
their
what,
exactly.
no matter what. And it will nothing will ever be diminished. crimes will never be diminished. Go to a point where there won't be such a thing. We don't live in a fantasy world
The utopia,
where everything's
there's no such
perfect.
thing as
There's no
utopia.
such thing of a
They don't
utopia.
exist.
Like, there you go. If you want a utopia, I suggest you go online, you go on Netflix, and go watch a
and you
movie
and you
that's
and
close
you
to a
hide in
utopia.
your little bunker and believe that nothing's happening in the world. Exactly.
Yeah,
And I just like to say that although like I don't advocate for rioting of any sense or the destruction of property of any sense. Um,
neither do I, by
and
the way.
I know I'm not saying that you were saying that, but I like to say that I don't think that you have to necessarily destroy, because people were suggesting that people attack government buildings and whatnot. I don't think that's the case because, especially at least in Minnesota, not Minnesota, Minneapolis, which is in Minnesota, that burning like
Good one there.
let's say burning down the courthouse. What does that do? If you want justice for Floyd, you want the courthouse to still be there because that's where the trial is going to be held at. If it doesn't, if it
But here's the
and no,
problem
no, but
about that,
that's my the
because
thing is right. Like I understand that target. I don't think that destruction is beneficial to anybody because it slows down the process of justice. And
the reason why they may have targeted the courthouse is because you know how many
I
trials.
understand. That's why I
Um,
understand. Like for me, it makes it obviously for anybody, it would make more sense for people to attack government buildings or whatnot. I don't like
that's
exactly a
exactly what I
government
was
building.
saying before.
Not people's individual, not mayor's individual address. Don't go harassing and trying to destroy people's houses, but protesting in front of government buildings because that's what people have gripes with the government and the police. And I think out of like, if you're going to attack anything, that would make I don't say I in general I say don't attack any building, but it makes more logical sense to me that you would be going for the government buildings or the police stations. Now I'm not advocating that the police stations burn down. I'm actually against it. I feel like that's not productive. But again, protesting, not protesting, but rioting and looting of businesses doesn't do anything. It actually hurts your case. It hurts the case for justice even more because now we have to deal with these individual pockets of robberies or burglaries or people being shot because they're going into people's businesses and whatnot, or people being injured because they tried to stop a gas truck from moving on the highway, which I find to be pretty dumb. If you there's an old saying, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Like, why are you trying to attack a citizen that's in a truck that's just trying to go on his go on his merry way, and you getting in front of the truck with him slowing down and just bang on the person's windows? What does that do? And that's just that. Sorry, that was me going off on a tangent, but that
It's
that
okay,
really
man.
bothers.
You hear that
Exactly,
express
it
yourself,
really
man.
bothers me when I see people claim to be victims of things when they could have avoided it. Like, oh, why are you attacking people in car? Why are you going after gas trucks? Why are you going after these people that are in their cars just trying to get home? Maybe they're at work. Maybe they were with a sibling. Maybe they were with a relative of theirs that was having a difficult time, and they're just trying to get back home. And
But but people sometimes, and sorry to cut you off,
yeah,
Jay, but sometimes people feel like if you attack a government official or a police officer's
you shouldn't be
family,
attacking government officials. Like
exactly.
attacking people,
But
like you shouldn't be going to the people that you dislike's houses and harassing them there because you
exactly,
should,
because
exactly.
some people might feel that you took away one of my family members, now I'm gonna
Exactly.
take one of yours, and that's just
Exactly.
revenge, and that's not what should be going on
That's
here.
what I don't like is because a lot of justifications is that like uh rioting and looting aren't good or something along those lines, and then people say, well, murder isn't good either. It's like that just because something bad happened doesn't mean you in turn need to do something bad as well. A lot of people like to say this, um say this quote saying an eye for an eye leaves the world blind. They say that in other situations, but when it comes to this, that saying that people live by goes out the window. Where it's like, why are you attacking people in cars? Why are you going after gas trucks? Why are you going after these people that are in their cars just trying to get home? Maybe they're at work. Maybe they were with a sibling. Maybe they were with with a relative of theirs that was having a difficult time, and they're just I do want to go after other people's eyes. I want to take a pound of flesh off somebody. I want to get my revenge on them.
And that's a problem because sometimes quotes and sayings are misunderstood and interpreted into something else. And then when you that people they say that they live by
By
those
like
quotes,
a
those
moral code,
sayings,
exactly.
but yeah,
But when
exactly. But in
it comes down
reality,
to when it
they don't live by
exactly
it. When it comes to the
exactly
time to apply
when
it.
time gets tough, they don't live by they show their hypocrisy. And I pride myself in trying to stay as consistent um, with myself in general. I try to stay consistent with my values, what I believe in, because I feel like that's the only honest way of living. Living any other way, where you make exceptions for yourself, only leads you down to doing worse and worse things. Because if you can make an exception for this case, why not make an exception for another case or another situation, and such and such? And that's something that really bothers me is people in regular time when things weren't this bad, people advocating for this, that, and the third, and then when push comes to shove, that all those moral sayings, all those Instagram quotes, all them Twitter bios, all those go out the window, and the true colors of people show, and
People just like
for the sake of talking,
just to say
just for the sake
something,
of, and
just to say
just
that,
to
like, here's my
exactly
voice, this is what I
just
live
to
by.
virtue signal,
But in reality, they don't.
just a virtue signal, and that's why just a virtue signal and whatnot, and saying, and just another thing, um, I don't like. There's a group of YouTubers. There's not a group of YouTubers. There's a duo. I don't know. I'm not sure what to call them, but there's Montreal YouTubers called Ab and Preach, and they had a pretty good take on the whole on the looting and riots and whatnot, and just in another video completely separate to it, they're talking about how a lot of people, a lot of white people in general have this type of um, savior complex where they need to uh, where they need to like act as if like they're doing such great things for the community because they have some type of warped um, self aggrandizing self worth. They think they're so good and so virtuous by um, bending down and just agreeing to everything without any thought that they think they're virtuous because they're doing that. And in my mind, as a black person, I think it's patronizing the fact that you think that I need some type of extra help from you just to live. I just want to be treated as if you treat everybody else.
Yes, as an equal,
Exactly.
right? Like, some people like feel that, like, and this happens at my work too. I'm not gonna say where I work because I don't want you guys hunting me down. Some of you guys know, but good for you. Do not spread the word, please. But I see people like helping immigrants in a special manner, and I'm not talking about like, oh, let me help you because you're right next to me. I'm talking about like they feel
It's like, oh my
sorry
God,
for an
for you.
immigrant, so they run across the store just to go help that person because, like, oh my god, that person must be living through hell right now. Let me be a good person in his life. Maybe let me give him hope. Let me make him make sure
Exactly,
that,
like
like, I'm one of those nice white
exactly, like,
people,
bro, calm
and
down.
that's
It's
horrible.
disgusting.
You're giving them
You're treating them
false
you're treat
hope.
not just a false hope thing. You're treating them as if they're as if we're not capable enough of moving through adversity, as if we're afraid little children that need somebody to save them. I don't need no white person to save me, not to get all black. I don't need nobody telling me nothing about nothing. I have my own opinions and whatnot. I don't need people telling me this, that, and the third. Oh, don't you feel like it's insensitive? I think that's one of my biggest issues. I think,
And as a white person,
yeah,
okay, who why does the white man have to save the immigrant all the time? Why can't the immigrant save the white man? And that's
Chris,
a thing that, like, I always think about. That's what I always think about in movies. Okay, it's always portrayed as the the I don't know, the immigrant or the person that is not from the white culture is always like needs help, always has a hard time, always has to be saved, you
exactly,
know? And same thing in real life, you know? Why do we need a powerful white person to speak for the immigrants? Why can't the immigrants have their own voice and
Why does
speak.
why?
Obviously there's people that
Yeah,
do, but I mean, like, why do they have to wait upon the white person, with the power? Create your own power. Get to that a position where you'll be able to speak for your own community and unite with the white people that are willing to contribute and help you progress. That's the way
it's
I
all
see it.
about
Everyone
unity.
needs to just work
It's all
together.
about unity.
It's about
Exactly.
unity,
Regardless,
exactly.
stop
We
trying to
cannot
segregate each other
be
and saying, exactly,
separated.
stop trying to say, oh, the white man did me wrong or something. Just say, you know what? There's some, you have some bad apples. We have some bad apples. All we could do as good apples is make an orchard. That's a fine
There's
rate.
black criminals, there's white
That's a,
criminals. There's criminals are not distinguished by culture and so-called race, even though there's no such thing as race. Uh, you know,
People are gonna be mad at you
um,
about that. People are gonna be mad at you about that.
but there's no
I
such
get what
thing
you're trying to
because we're
say.
all the
Exactly. I get what you're
same.
trying to say.
We're
Like race shouldn't be important because at the end of the day, guess what? We're all made of the same flesh, muscle, bone. We all bleed.
we're all
We all cry.
there.
We
You
all
go.
hurt.
And
We all
and
exactly. We all feel pain. We all feel love. We all feel joy.
if you've ever taken a sociology class, it's implemented depending on the instructor you have or the professor you have. It's mentioned race was literally fabricated from our society. It's not something that's real. It's not something. It's just it's a word that's
As
used
for describing,
to
and obviously
to
there's a
yeah
use in describing people because descriptions in of themselves aren't bad. Describing somebody as fairer skin or light skin or darker isn't necessarily race. It's just a descriptor. It's saying, look, it's just to
yeah. You're
describe.
just describing the person's
Exactly.
physical
Attributes. It's not
attributes.
like we're saying anything about it as if like, oh, as if
If anything, the word race separates
exactly.
us. It diminishes the unity,
Exactly.
if anything, and that's horrible. We need to learn how to fucking literally burn that word in fucking
All right.
flames and start using the word unity and describing each other by our personality traits and not by like and our
The
nationalities,
context of
not by the color of our
exactly. You're
skin.
basically what you're saying is the context of our character, not the content of our skin. And that's
Like
exactly
if you're gonna like if you wanna like get to know somebody, don't be like, oh, they're black. Who gives a fuck? Oh, they're white. Who gives a
exactly
fuck? It's where do you come from? I come from Germany. Okay. What's your occupation? Oh, I fucking work at a fucking bank. Oh, what city do you live in? And so on.
exactly.
Like
No,
fucking
no,
just
no, the
normal
person.
conversation.
What's really funny. What I always find funny. People sometimes get a little scared about this because you know me pretty well. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I don't take things too seriously, more or less, right? Unless things have to be serious, like a serious discussion or something. But like even in some cases where I'm talking to new people and they think that I'm mixed, and I say, "Oh no, I'm not mixed. I'm fully black." Like I think half of our friend group thought I was mixed at one point until I told them, "Nah, I'm full black. I'm from Haiti." Blah blah blah. And they're like, "Wait, what?" It's like you're not mixed. You're still light though. It's like the thing is, I don't take that person because I understand. To me, when I see somebody of lighter complexion, I don't automatically think mixed person. I think, oh, that's a person, but I do understand when people are trying to. I'm not saying people assuming that I'm mixed is a racist. Not. It's definitely not. It's just you're trying to piece a puzzle. You're trying to solve a puzzle with the information you have, and it's like, oh wow, like I didn't know that about you. And so I find it funny every time I meet somebody new and they completely get baffled that I'm fully black. It's like, yes, dude, there are some Haitians out there that are light skinned. Like, where have you been? Like not all fully black people have to be super dark. I'm blessed with the light skin genes. By Drake has gazed upon me and given me his light skin powers. I appreciate. I appreciate.
Oh, look at
Look at me, I'm
me.
light skin, and
I separate myself because of the tone of my
exactly.
skin.
It's like,
Like,
nah,
okay,
it's
maybe.
obviously, I'm joking. I like to make things lighthearted, but of course, like, I don't take myself that seriously. Like, I just find, I find, I'm on a tangent, but I find that story to be funny because I see people tense up because they're like, oh my God, is he gonna get mad at me because I assume that? It's like, no, it's like, you didn't know. Like, it's funny to me because,
Exactly. We can't take things
exactly, like,
personally and like start like thinking that it's connected to our nationality or the color or our skin tone. And not only that, but like if you have like, and this is like in general, and I'm just gonna explain my relationship, my friendship with Kuska. Like in our friend group, we treat him special because he's the only black guy in a group.
Hell no,
No,
I'd
no, we
roast you
don't. We treat him like
if you.
everybody else. Even sometimes even better than fucking other people in a group because we just because we just relate with him more and we just like talking to him more. And maybe he's fucking cooler and funnier than the fucking losers in our group. I'm not saying you're losers, but you know, sometimes it's not because they're black that they're cool or whatever. It's the
The
personality.
personality.
Kuska's a fucking great guy, and I guarantee you there's so many freaking great people out there from black communities. And don't give them special treatment because you feel bad for them. Bad treat them the way that you
Exactly.
want to treat them because they're your
Exactly, bro.
friends, because they're
I'd
cool,
roast you.
because they make
Listen,
you
I'd roast
laugh.
you people. I'd roast the friend group if you treated me any differently from what you've been treating me. Like me. I'm an equal opportunity hitter. No, it doesn't matter who you are, who you with, how much money you got. I'm roasting. I'm flaming your ass. Why? Because I can, and it's funny. Surprisingly, I didn't understand. I didn't notice about this. Is kind of like humble brag, but I was actually mentioned as one of the funny people in the group. I was like, excuse you? I like me. I didn't think I was that funny. I don't think I just thought I was honest and real. I kept it 100% of the time. You know what I'm saying? So like, I do. When people said like, oh, like you're one of the funny people in the group, it actually caught me by surprise. I'm like, I'll just me being funny is just me being myself. Like it's me with my sarcastic humor, more or less being a jackass, being kind of like a sarcastic prick, and it is what it is. Like that's me. I can't be anybody else but me. And it's not because I'm black that I get away with that I am able to do certain things. Although I do, I had to recognize that I do have there's certain things that I could say, certain jokes that I could say without any fear of repercussions compared to some of the friends in the group when it comes to public outings. Like Chris knows full well there's certain jokes that I have made that if anybody in the group made in public would have at least got lambasted, run through the coals for being an insensitive piece of shit. Hey man, in the world of comedy, there are some bad jokes, but for the most part, you just decide not to laugh at it, and that's my general philosophy when it comes to like interaction with people. It is what it is.
And there's something I want to like move towards, and it's like actually the last topic before we
Yeah,
conclude this episode is going back to the social media aspect of what's happening during these protests. And there's one thing that kind of bothers me, and if people want to light off on me and fucking tell me to go fuck myself, well, fuck you. That's my opinion. Is I feel like it's becoming a trend. There's people you have half, or maybe even less, or maybe even more of the social media users that actually mean what they're
exactly.
posting, and then there's some people that are like, oh my god, it's a trend. I'm sorry if I'm subjecting one more. Oh my god, bro, everyone's doing it. Go, we gotta do it. No, it's not a trend. It's your personal beliefs. If you feel that this is what you gotta do because everyone's doing it for the better of like George Floyd's like I don't know
Yeah,
how to explain it actually,
for if
but
you're, I think
if you're doing the beneficial like reasons to help support George Floyd and the black community, then good. But if you're just gonna do it because you
some.
want to show
Oh, look
everybody
at
that
me! Look
you're
at my
you're joining
brownie
you're joining the
points. Look at me! I'm doing so
yeah,
good.
there you go. Like joining the bandwagon, then like I don't know what to say, but you're a piece of shit. You're literally a piece of shit. Like don't. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You're a fucking fake piece of
Exactly,
shit.
and I
Do I have to say it
exactly
again?
the shit.
Fake piece
And
of
this
shit.
and
And this is my reasoning why.
yeah,
Okay, and it's because people want to do it to be recognized, and that's not the point. That's
virtue
not what we're
exactly
trying to. You're not trying to be
taking up their
recognized.
virtue.
You're not trying to
Exactly.
glorify someone's death. You're not trying to glorify the black community. You're trying to help them. You want to
Look
stand
at me!
side
I'm
by
so
side, not in front of them. Not in front of them. You're trying to stand side by side, and that's a fucking problem with these fucking people sometimes. And like, I applaud everybody that is doing it for the great of good. Honestly, fucking respect you guys. I know I'm doing it. I'm doing this podcast to give you a voice, the people a voice, and my opinions. And as a white guy, like I'm with you guys, like I'm with the black community. I
Whoa,
understand.
okay,
I don't
whoa.
understand what you guys go through,
Are you are
personally.
you virtue signaling, Chris, or are you only saying that so you get brownie points, Chris, or what? What are you a true Black Lives Matter supporter, huh, Chris? Huh, Chris? Or is that or you're just doing this podcast because you wanted clout or something? Is that what?
No, no,
No,
no,
I'm
no.
obviously being
It's something it's come to my attention that it's my turn to stand and fight with everybody and not make this a trend. I'll be honest with you, when Black Matters first started, I didn't have social media, so I couldn't participate in everything. But I guarantee you, I would have probably done what all those pieces of shit are doing right now and thinking of it as a trend. Now I'm older. I'm 20. I'm close to 20 years old. Okay, we have a we have a better understanding of how the world functions.
exactly,
We we've passed high school. We're in university now, and this is not a joke. You know, people are suffering, people are victims, families are diminishing in numbers because of this. This is something that has to be
exactly,
spoken about,
exactly,
something that has to be taken seriously. And people that are using it as a trend,
exactly,
you're fucking
exactly, and
retarded. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I
it's
don't, like,
disgusting,
maybe I shouldn't use the word retarded, but you guys are not
disgusting.
helping the
You're
case. You guys are not materializing what is at stake
exactly,
here.
yeah,
You're taking it for granted.
exactly,
It's not a trend. People are suffering. You need to help out for the right reasons. If you're gonna take it as a trend, back off. Don't even post
exactly.
anything, and just stay and
And
go
he,
like your freaking Kim Kardashian
exactly, and
pictures or
even
whatever the
then, like
fuck you're doing to
even then,
spread talent.
I don't blame people for posting the black square. I don't blame them because like they don't know they don't know exactly what to do and how to help or how to properly
They don't
they
even
follow the
know about the
exactly
situation. All they know is that
they
somebody
follow the trend
died. That's all they
and
know.
not to take over your show, but I like to make a segment called, for at least my list, a list of Cusca's people that he thinks is a piece of shit. So people that I think are pieces of shit, people that are saying that are disingenuous and being babies and saying if you don't if you're more focused on the riots and looting, then you're part of the problem. No, honey boo boo, we're not part of the problem. We're actually adults talking about the actual ramifications of what's going on. We're able to look at multiple things at the same time. You, by saying, oh, you don't really care about black people if you're only concerned about the riots. No, I am concerned about black people. How about the black? There's a video of a black owner that put his life savings into opening up a bar, and people came in there and stole his safe. That's a victimized black person right there. But no, I can't mention rioting and looting. Anybody that says that, I could confidently sleep well at night and say, you're a jerk, you're an asshole, you're a piece of shit, you're a little whiny baby. People that are incapable of other people's opinions without getting butthurt and mad and without with people that are listen to other people's opinions and instantly think, oh, this person must be a racist, or this person might, and completely discredit people's opinions just because you don't like them. Guess what? You're a piece of shit. I don't like you. There's not much to say. People that are using this opportunity to take advantage of the situation and riot and loot, piece of shit. That's pretty self-explanatory. You're detracting from a great message, which is trying to reform the police and the criminal justice system. Not to quote Law and Order, one of my favorite shows, by the way. Not to go off on a tangent, but it's a part. It's just there's groups of people that are I like to call bad faith actors. It's not like a term that I use I made, but there's some bad faith out there. There's some bad faith actors that will take the message and spin it for their own needs, so they can, I don't know, grab power, use it for to get more money, use it to virtue signal, use it to make themselves look better than other people, use it to put down people, and that's not we want. That's not what we want to be doing with the message of George Floyd. We do not want to be using his death to silence others, to destroy. We want to be out there using his death in a positive light by advocating for police reform, for holding the police and the government accountable for the actions that they've done. And there's not much else to be said. And I don't understand why people um, have to resort to these black and white scenarios where not for lack of better words, but these polarized um, narratives where if you're not on my side, you're not on any side, you're on the wrong side. It's like, no, people can have different opinions or people can have different ways of dealing with an issue. Just because they have a different way of dealing with it doesn't mean they're inherently wrong or they inherently hate you as a person. I don't understand why people uh, uh, can't openly talk about these things publicly without people getting into a frenzy. And that's one. I think that's I probably said this 15,000 times, but this is honestly one of the saddest things to see is as at least as an immigrant standpoint coming from a third world country, coming to a country where in Canada and in some ways America, since America and Canada are kind of like the shining stars of the world, more America for obvious reasons, but that's beside the point. Coming to these countries and seeing how the people are devolving from the dialogue, how free speech and open dialogue and civil debates and civil discourse have been just completely eroded over time. That honestly makes me sad because our family moved here away from Haiti so we could have these freedoms, and slowly but surely they're disappearing. You can't speak freely without being threatened or without being called this, that, or the third. And in all, that's one of the saddest things to me. If there's one thing I could take away from this situation is that it's a sad and unfortunate situation that we're in, um, and that's being said. That and for some reason, on a lighter note, what happened to Corona? What happened to the COVID? What happened to the Kong flu? That shit disappeared like lightning, bro.
It's still
It's still
occurring,
occurring,
but
but
now
no
this
one's
is
worried
the
about it.
main
No one's
focus
thing
right
is no
now.
one's worried about it. That's what's weird to me. I remember before people were saying you have to stay locked down, you have to stay inside, blah blah blah, and now everybody's outside.
But this is the one aspect you have to understand, and people have to understand, is because people were looking for new news. People were looking for something new to occur,
I
so we
understand.
could
Yeah, I get, I
distract
get, I
ourselves
get it, I
from
get
it
it. But
and jump
the
on
whole
board with
point is
this.
that if I for me, I could see general people's general attitude towards Corona because if this was Ebola, where it's a 50% death rate, if you catch that shit, you're dead. Nobody would be outside. Not a damn soul would be outside. But because the death rate is 0.0 from what I remember, don't quote me on this, but it's around 0.02% for the population, at least in the States and I think Canada as well. Um, it goes to show people's general because to me it was blown to be it was set to be this big thing. Not to get too off topic of the race thing, but they are kind of the topic that we were talking before. But they are kind of related because they're back to back. Like it was a precursor to what's going on now. But I find it really weird how people's like if you, it's just like people's true colors are showing. I feel like people's true attitudes towards the virus are showing, as in like we're tired of it. We don't want to be locked down anymore. We want to be going outside. We want to be stimulating the economy. We want to go back to work. We understand that there are risks and whatnot, and people potentially getting hurt and dying from it. But however, there's more to lose. There's more damages to lose if we don't go out and live our lives.
There's also something else I would like to just add on as a concluding
Yeah,
statement before we end this episode is basically um, people are complaining that top celebrities and sports icons are not voicing their opinion. You
yep.
know, staple us people that are so iconic that are the face of some sports, such as the NHL, Sidney Crosby. A lot of criticism that he's not speaking even though he doesn't have social media platforms. And then you have other people below him, like Alexander Ovechkin and Jonathan Taves and
Shows your bias
uh,
below him.
Evander Kane. And
Shows your hockey bias, but
well,
I understand. Yeah,
that's
I
not the
get,
topic. That's another topic for
yeah,
another
yeah.
time. But that are voicing their opinions. And then obviously in the NBA, you have LeBron James. He was also the face of the NBA, but he's also part of the black
The
community.
Black Lives
So
Matter, yeah.
there's understand, yeah, exactly, and that as well. So there's one piece of advice that I have to give people. People with money and people with that type of status, they don't want to help us. They don't want to help average people. They don't want to give us any sense of power or more money. They're comfortable where they're at, and if they want to help, they're gonna help. You have the nice people in the business, and you have the cruel people that are greedy and selfish and just care about themselves and the game or the movies that they
Yeah.
make or produce or
Yeah.
direct and so on. So
The
with
wait,
that,
well, the one thing before I let you finish, I'm sorry if I drag this on. I
yeah,
just
it's
want
okay.
to
Don't worry.
because I don't in that way. I don't feel like people should have to say something. If you don't want to say something,
It's by their
no,
actions. Their actions
I understand that, but like
dictate how they
you don't
feel.
have to. You don't have to. I don't feel like we should be forcing people for action because then you're incentivizing. You're not really treating it the issue as it is. Just saying you better you. It's like you're threatening people into being canceled for lack of better words. Um, to do something. It's like that's not how we should be um, advocating for. We should be inviting people nicely, not saying that. Oh, if you don't donate to this, you're a terrible person. We shouldn't be doing that because what does that make what does that make the person feel? It's like I don't maybe phrase just as an example. I'm not saying this is to be true, but let's say Sidney Crosby um, isn't a racist person. He's just saying he just doesn't hasn't said anything and people are saying, "Oh, Sidney Crosby's a racist because he didn't say anything." It's like I didn't. How does that make him feel as a person? Because he's just trying. He doesn't. It's not like he doesn't want to say anything, but just I guess the point I'm trying to say is that if you don't say, you shouldn't be condemned. People shouldn't assume that you're a bad person if you don't want to speak about a subject
People are expecting way too much
because they're
from
humans too.
icons right
Celebrities are
now,
humans too.
and people are being they're fooling themselves and they're
Not
hurting
everybody. Not,
themselves by believing that their idols are like
they're
um
human.
not
They're
joining
human.
in
Like they don't have
to what they
Right.
believe in.
They don't have the thing is you shouldn't have to force people to believe in what you believe in. People can believe whatever they want to believe. That's the beauty of freedom. And the whole beauty of freedom is that we're able to discuss about these differences and test out in public opinion in the court of public opinion which things to be which things should be valued and which things should be valued because at the end of the day it's about the truth. There's nothing more powerful than what the truth is. There's no your truth, there's no my truth, there's the truth. And you can only hope at the end of the day that the truth wins. Sometimes the truth loses because people lie or there's things that stop the truth from happening, but or from the truth from being exposed. But at the end of the day, the truth is the only true the facts and the truth are the only thing that are absolute in the world. And not in the sense that's saying that there are other things that are important, but we'd want to have a society where the truth is valued over everything else. We shouldn't be forcing people to
And I'm not trying to
exactly
like
so
just to go
exactly yeah.
back to the celebrities. I'm not trying to shit on them. I'm just trying to say don't put your hope, or
You
as they say, don't
you
put
shouldn't
all
care
your eggs in
exactly.
one
You shouldn't
basket
care about what
because you're
other
gonna
people
hurt
exactly. You
yourself.
shouldn't care about what other
Because
people think.
we gotta think about the people that are working minimum wage
Exactly.
jobs. Yeah,
So it's like
exactly. Uh, and people that are like just average Joes, like me and you, and people in the community that like that they actually work.
yeah.
And when I mean work, I mean like literally like use their hands or they use their brains
They work exactly.
to actually get work done for the better use of
Exactly. Like
society. And I'm not saying sports is not considered work. That's their profession, you know. But I'm just saying people in our fields of work should are what is what matters. We should
exactly like
unite. We shouldn't worry about the celebrities and
exactly
the icons
exactly what I was
because
about to say.
they could do whatever the
Because
hell they
they're
want because they
individuals.
have the money, they have the status, they have the
Not only
power.
that, they're
They could just sit on their ass and collect their paychecks and whatever.
but
So do not put your faith in
exactly
them. If they want to help, they're gonna help. Do not criticize them. Do not shit on them and don't lose hope and be like, oh, I'm not gonna watch him anymore in
exactly
sports because he didn't help in protesting what I believe in. No, enjoy your fucking sports, okay? Enjoy that. Don't try to mingle and mix things, and it's gonna change your whole perspective on how you view that
exactly
person or how you view that sport or celebrities and movies and so on. they're just there for your
Exactly.
entertainment.
At
This is
the at
political views. Do not try mixing
exactly.
entertainment with
At the end of the day,
politics, or you're gonna
at the
get
end of the
hurt.
day, they're individuals too. You shouldn't be worrying about what other people think. You should be worrying about what you think and what you can do. You shouldn't be worrying about what about the other person, because the other person is irrelevant. Because you can't
Exactly.
control the other person. It's impossible to
And with that being
exactly.
said,
Yep.
man, with that being said, man, sorry
No,
to cut
it's
you
fine.
off. I know you have so much to
It's
say,
100.
man, but literally, like, I don't want people to be like, "Oh my god, it's fucking 2 hours of like content. What the fuck? What can they possibly say?" And honestly, we both have a lot more
Of
to
course.
say, and maybe we can make a continuation of this episode, a part two. But we just need to make sure that this video gets enough love and people actually pay attention. They listen to what we have to say. It's not just the video to get people to subscribe or to give me likes or anything. I use this
Just a
podcast to
conversation.
give a voice
Conversation.
to the people, and uh, I solely wanted to base this on what matters in life, what's being talked about in the world, whether if it's um, political issues, entertainment, news, whatsoever, what it is. And if people are just interested, just come on the damn podcast, and I'll be more than glad to have an interview, and we could talk about what the fuck we want. But with that being said, thank you so much, Sebastian Kuska, for everything that you provided us with this episode. I hope there's justice for
Of
George
course.
Floyd
Of
at the end
course.
of the day. I hope something is resolved. And with that being said, thank you so much. This has been episode 4 covering the George Floyd protests. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you,
Nah, it's
Kuska.
my pleasure.